Have you ever wondered how two countries that share a 2,000-mile border can be, well, two completely different worlds? On one side, you've got a global superpower. On the other, a nation grappling with some serious issues of violence and corruption. The answer isn't just about politics or culture. It's actually built into the very rules that run each country. And you can see it with your own eyes, right at the fence that divides them. Okay, so let's start right on that border in a city called Nogales. It's literally one city, but it's sliced in two by a fence. You've got Arizona on one side and Mexico on the other. We're talking about the same people, same culture, same climate. But the reality, it couldn't be more different. In just 1 year, the Mexican side had 365 murders. The American side, 0. The average family in U.S. Nogales makes more than double what their neighbors do, and twice as many adults have a higher education. I mean, these aren't just numbers. They paint a picture of two completely separate worlds living side by side. So why? What on earth explains this massive gap in wealth and safety? If it's not about the people or the geography, then it has to be something else, right? And that's the big puzzle we're going to try and solve today. Well, according to a lot of economists, the answer lies in something pretty fundamental, the rules of the game that each society decided to play by a long, long time ago. And it turns out, those rules shape just about everything else. It pretty much boils down to two kinds of systems. On one hand, you have inclusive systems. Think of these as creating a level playing field, where lots of people can compete, come up with new ideas, and actually benefit from their own hard work. The other kind is an extractive system. This one's designed more like a funnel. Its whole purpose is to pull wealth from the majority and channel it into the pockets of a tiny group at the top. Here's a simple way to think about it. An inclusive society is kind of like an anthill. Everybody is working together to make the whole pie bigger for everyone. But an extractive society, that's more like a game of king of the hill. The goal isn't to grow the pie. The goal is to claw your way to the top, kick everybody else off, and then rewrite the rules so you get to keep the entire pie for yourself. Okay, so let's make this real. Let's see exactly how this king of the hill model has played out in Mexico by looking at the stories of three, let's call them modern-day kings. Our first king is the monopolist. This was Carlos Slim. And for 4 years, this guy was the richest man on the entire planet. At his peak, his personal wealth was equal to a mind-boggling 5.8% of Mexico's whole economy. Now, he didn't get there by inventing some world-changing product to sell globally. Nope, he did it by controlling over 90% of the telephone lines inside Mexico. That is the king of the hill model in its purest form. Our second king is the corporation. Let's take Coca-Cola. Just look at this chart. You can see Coke consumption in Mexico absolutely skyrocketed. But here's the crucial detail. This explosion in sales began right after Vicente Fox, a man who was a top executive at Coca-Cola for 15 years, became president of Mexico. And the cost of this particular game of King of the Hill, it was staggering. Mexico is now the #1 consumer of sugary drinks in the entire world. Diabetes rates have doubled, and the disease is now linked to 1 out of every 7 deaths. And at the exact same time, the company got special access to scarce water, often leaving local communities high and dry. And that brings us to our third and by far the most violent king, the narco state. This is a world where powerful drug cartels are basically a law unto themselves. Their business model is frankly terrifyingly effective. They've gone from just trafficking drugs to becoming major producers of synthetics like fentanyl. They've diversified. They're stealing oil. They're controlling the multi-billion-dollar avocado trade. They have their own private armies that are often better armed than the actual police, creating a parallel state that runs on pure violence. But here's the thing. You can't really understand Mexico's internal struggles without looking north. The influence of the United States, its neighbor's shadow, hangs over everything. You know, the relationship was pretty much forged in conflict when the U.S. took half of Mexico's land way back in 1848. Then later, during World War II, the Bracero program brought millions of Mexicans north to work. But as soon as the war was over, a mass deportation program sent millions right back home. It set up this pattern where Mexican labor was treated like a resource you could just turn on and off like a faucet. And just look at the economic reality today. What is the single biggest source of foreign cash coming into Mexico? It's not selling cars. It's not from oil. It's the $58.5 billion sent home by migrants working in the United States. That shows you an incredible level of economic dependency. So, what funds the cartels' private armies and their reign of terror? It's the never ending demand for illegal drugs from the world's largest market, which just happens to be right across the border in the United States. This massive river of cash is the lifeblood of the violence. And all of this creates the ultimate paradox. Mexico has major manufacturing plants, it has economic growth, it has global brands working there, and yet millions of its own citizens are desperate enough to risk absolutely everything to leave. Why? Well, they're fleeing the consequences of that king of the hill system. They're trying to escape a reality where opportunity is hoarded by the powerful and where brutal violence is just a part of daily life. And this number, nearly 2.8 million times people were stopped at the border in a single year, that's not just a statistic. It's a measure of human desperation. Now, the solution we always hear about for the border crisis is a wall. But here's the thing. The idea of separating these two groups of people, it isn't new at all. It's actually rooted in a much older and honestly a much darker history. Back in 1848, right after the U.S. conquered half of Mexico's territory, this is what the Vice President, John C. Calhoun, actually said. It was an openly stated belief among American leaders that Mexicans, because they were of mixed race, were basically unfit to become citizens. The desire for separation was explicitly based on race, right from the very beginning. And this really brings us to our final question. Is a physical wall today a real solution to these incredibly deep, tangled problems? Or is it just a very, very expensive monument to a complex system of extraction and dependency that in a lot of ways actually benefits powerful elites on both sides of that fence?